Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. We're live here from Big Daddy Unlimited Studios. I'm feeling kind of festive today. I guess we could call it Festive Friday. I'm wearing a beautiful shirt that my beloved wife gave me this week, and I thought I would wear it here to kind of celebrate the coming of the weekend. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to start out with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is suing the federal government for being a little bit too mean to them. They're worried about the crackdown on the protest that they're having, and they're suing the federal government. Black Lives Matter. Can you imagine that? And Ocasio-Cortez, she's been in the news quite a bit lately, but she wants to take opportunity away from people of color. Yeah, she pushed forward a proposal, an amendment to the spending bill yesterday to take away opportunity zones, which bring tax relief and reinvestment into minority neighborhoods. And we'll explain what that means. And then progressives, man, I tell you all the time, they go to extremes. There is a push now within the progressive movement, backed by doctors, experts of science, that we need to actually go to a real shutdown. Not what we've done before, not a partial shutdown, but a complete shutdown. And I'll explain to you exactly what that would look like, what they're thinking. And believe me, it is certainly possible. It is definitely on their wish list. But we start with Black Lives Matter. This is a Bloomberg story. Black Lives Matter Chicago sues U.S. on policing of protests. So basically, they're upset about the way protests have been policed, and I'd say lack thereof. And they're specifically talking about what's happening out in Portland with federal police officers and the threat, or the promise, if you will, that Donald Trump has made to bring that type of policing to places like Chicago, where Black Lives Matters, their Chicago unit, I didn't know they were structured that way, but I guess they are, is suing to try to prevent the feds from coming and disrupting their mostly peaceful protests. So we start with this article from Bloomberg. Black Lives Matter and several other civil rights groups have filed a lawsuit seeking to prevent federal agents from patrolling the streets of Chicago as promised by President Donald Trump. Well, we know if Donald Trump promises something, promises made, promises kept, he delivers. Well, it got me to thinking, why would they want to stop this? Well, they must be working, right? Because Black Lives Matter doesn't mind confrontation. As a matter of fact, I think they welcome confrontation. They actually exacerbate situations. We're going to show you a video proving just that in just a moment. But they want confrontation. So the fact that they're suing because they're worried about confrontation with the feds tells me that what the federal government is doing out in Portland is working, and they don't want it to come to other cities like Chicago. Citing claims that federal agents, excuse me, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It slipped on me, it's just a hair. There we go. The dangers of live TV. Citing claims that federal agents abused protesters in Portland, Oregon, the group said they fear they will be arrested or beaten without cause during their planned protest this weekend. So is that a big problem for the protesters, that they're being arrested and beaten without cause? According to a lawsuit filed in federal court, that's what they're seeking. But the term without cause, I'm going to play a video. We played it earlier this week. If you want to check out our podcast, the best way to do it is go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. You can check us out on our YouTube channel. We're getting more and more followers there. We really appreciate it. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have our videos archived there as well. We're on America's Voice News, not only on the Facebook page in the mornings, howdy, how y'all doing, but we're across their network, their streaming network in the evening. We're a late night show on that, and you can get that on by downloading free apps on any of your devices, Android, iPhone. They stream on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, channel 219, Dish Network, and we are on Pluto streaming channel as well. So there's multiple ways to watch us and the craziness that we have. But I played this video for you. Let me set this up. because I think it really times into this, because keep in mind, we're talking about Black Lives Matter Chicago unit that is suing because they say they're being over-policed. This video has just been released, but it's actually a couple of months old. I think it goes back to around July 4th or maybe even sooner than that. What it shows is Chicago police officers, not federal, but Chicago police officers trying to keep a statue of Christopher Columbus from being destroyed. And they are met with something that is, I wouldn't say mostly peaceful. In other words, it's mostly violent protests. Pay particular attention. There's drone footage of this. There is a guy who literally on the camera, dressed as a white dude, by the way, goes in all black, passes out bricks for the spectators to throw at the police. And they also have this new technique they're using with the umbrellas like Roman shields. But you check this out and tell me, if you were a police officer, what you would do in this situation. Check it out.
By now, you've probably seen the video of protesters Friday squaring off with officers, but you may not have seen it from this angle, taken on the front line, showing the clashes in real time as they unfolded. 49 officers were injured, 12 people arrested. Let's bring in CBS 2's Chris Ty. And Chris, the violence was planned.
It appears it was, Erica. There are individuals here, and this is what's known, individuals showing up to these peaceful protests with alternative agendas, trying to turn up the heat and turn up the violence, in some cases, handing out weapons to other attendees. What's less clear, who's behind it? Who is this man? Hidden behind a wall of umbrella-carrying cohorts, he changes his clothes, and before it's over, he changes the tone of the night. Police cameras show his group providing extra projectiles for anyone to take and throw at police.
There's the sticks being thrown.
That's
at
good
one
enough.
point, you'll see one of the
That's good enough. That, one of the things you hear is what that news reporter is talking about. There's outside agitators, and I'm not disputing that. Apparently, it's very clear there's an outside agitator, but I don't see anybody reluctant to pick up those bricks that he's dumping out there and frozen water bottles and other things and throwing them and incendiary devices and throwing them at the cops. It looks to me like the majority of the people there are looking for something like that. So I've been saying this for the last couple of days. But of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. If you are an honest protester, in other words, you feel like you need to protest George Floyd, although I would say what's happening in our streets has zero to do with Mr. Floyd anymore. But let's say you honestly want to protest, not a Black Lives Matter member, because that organization is a Marxist organization, but you're sympathetic to the concept of Black Lives Matter and you're trying to stop police brutality and all of that. I understand. And you have a right to peaceful protest. But let me just tell you, you might as well go home. Go home. Your peaceful protest, if it ever was, I'm not questioning your intent, is over. It's been hijacked by other people. In this case, if you're black, by a lot of Black Lives Matter, but it's actually been hijacked by white folks trying to keep up, anarchists as well, and black people and multiple racial people. But your protest has simply been hijacked. It's time to go home. What we really need, and I show this with a little laughter, but because it reminds me of something my mama would have done. But I don't know if you remember this, have seen this. This goes back to when they were protesting in Baltimore, I think a couple of years ago, and they were protesting outside of a schoolhouse. And this mother recognized her teenage son as one of the protesters, and she had a little something to say about it. Let's check it out. That's good enough. That's good. I mean, we need more mamas like that. That's what we need. We need mad mamas to get out there and tell these hoodlums to get off the street, go home, man. I mean, I guarantee you, had I been foolish enough to do something like that, my mom would have been just like that. I don't know about the F-bombs, but she'd have felt that way, but she'd have been going upside my head. She was a hair puller. She'd have been dragging me down the street. There's no doubt about it. But don't we need more moms like that? Get these people off the street. If I say again, if you're a protester and you feel like you have a legitimate right to protest, go home right now. The best thing you could do is go home, because your protest is over. You may not know it, but it's over. It's been hijacked, and it is not going to end well. At some point, we're going to have to clean the streets up. We just are. Or we're just not going to have a country, which would be the worst possible outcome. Black Lives Matter and other groups said they are seeking a judicial order. So they're looking for justice. You know, they throw a brick through a window, and that's okay. Going to church, not so much so. Looking for justice, though. I like that. It's seeking a judicial order barring actions by federal agents that would interfere with the group's lawful protests, including conducting arrests without probable cause. Well, I don't know about you, but I've seen enough to know that their lawful protests are anything but that. And mostly peaceful, when you hear that term mostly peaceful, somebody usually died. And certainly their building, their life's dreams went up in flames. I don't know about you, but they're talking about Portland. They use an example. They don't want to be attacked like the do-gooders out in Portland, the peaceful protesters in Portland. I played this video for you the other day. We're going to play it again. This is the federal courthouse in Portland that President Trump has assigned the Homeland Security to defend federal property out in Portland. Here are the people who are worried about being mistreated by police officers. Check it out.
This is what we do. This is what we do. Everybody out.
That's good enough. That's good enough. Two things I really want to point out in that. I mean, there's so many. First of all, they don't seem very peaceful, do they? That is a federal courthouse. But at the beginning of the video, you hear them, burn this F down, burn this S down, burn that down. And towards the end of the video, you hear a guy shouting out something, and it is absolute truth what he is shouting out there. This is what we do. This is what we do. Take progressives at their word. I keep telling you that. This is what they do. This is what they're suing against right now. They don't want federal troops to come, or federal troops are not true, federal police officers to come in and put a stop to that, because this is what they do. And Black Lives Matter is citing what's happening in Portland in their lawsuit in Chicago. But I guess that's what they do. Burn it down, throw bricks at cops, that kind of thing. So no wonder they don't want Donald Trump to intervene, because when he intervenes, promises made, promises kept, law and order, because guess what? That's what he does. And they're worried about that. They're worried. But take progressives at their word. This is what we do. This is what they do. And this is the armed wing of the Democratic Party now. I wish it weren't true, but it is. And I say again, if you're a peaceful protester, you have a legitimate reason for being out there, go home. It's been hijacked. Your protest is over. Maybe come back later. Right now, this has nothing to do with anything about justice. It is pure hooliganism, and it is treasonous against the United States. Some people are out there actually trying to overthrow the government. Believe that. And so it's time to go home, because this is not going to end well. All right, we're going to move along to a story here from the Washington Examiner, and it's about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I either have to kind of whisper her name like AOC, or I have to say it like that. It's like there's no in between for me. But AOC introduces an amendment to defund Trump opportunity zones, and they name it Trump opportunity zones. What President Trump got passed, and we'll explain more in detail as we go on, in the 2017 tax reform was they set up areas in poor neighborhoods that they could get tax breaks and tax incentives for people to invest money there to revitalize and rebuild these impoverished neighborhoods. Not trying to move people out, none of that kind of stuff, trying to give opportunity. And Ocasio-Cortez is afraid of this, probably for the same reasons that Black Lives Matter doesn't want the feds coming into to Chicago, because it's working, and she doesn't want to see it work. But liberal Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rasheeda Talib, two of the members of what they call them, the squad. I call them the Twitter twats myself. I think it's a more appropriate name. But liberal Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rasheeda Talib filed an amendment to House spending package on Wednesday that would defund the Opportunity Zone program created by President Trump's 27 tax law. Now, there's no surprise whatsoever here. Ocasio, she's taken away opportunity. She specializes in taking away opportunity. For God's sakes, she took away opportunity for her own district. Remember, she pretty much single-handedly killed the Amazon project that would have been relocating their headquarters for like 25,000 new jobs, primarily in her district, paying high wages and benefits. She killed that project pretty much single-handedly. So that shows you right there, when it comes to opportunity, she don't want none. They want you to stay poor. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then Rasheeda Talib, well, we found out early on in her career that she only really cares about two things. I mean, when she ran and won in Detroit, she certainly doesn't care about Detroit. Because I'd ask you, what has she done for Detroit? Because right off the bat, the first thing she did, you talk about like working with somebody, you know, trying to get something done, that kind of thing. If you want to help Detroit, you got to get something passed through both houses of Congress and the president signed, right? Well, her first thing on her speech accepting that she won that night was this right here. Play that video if we can. Here we go.
And you win. And when your son looks at you and says, "Mama, look, you won," bullies don't win. And I said, "Baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker."
Sorry about the language, but that is a congresswoman we've elected to the United States of America from Detroit. And she's talking about speaking to her son, her young son, and she's telling him that kind of crap, man. Oh, my God. So she only cares about two things, and that was one of them. Impeaching Donald Trump. Apparently, there's two reasons why she ran. None of them have anything to do with Detroit. Impeaching Donald Trump. And the other thing is that she wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Take them off the map. Look at this picture right here. This is in her congressional office after she got sworn in. There's a map in her office of Middle East. She took it down, put Palestine, which, by the way, there's never been a country of Palestine, a nation of Palestine, right over the state of Israel. It begs the question that I keep asking. I can't get anybody to respond to me. If you care about Israel, if you're a Jewish American or just any American and you care about the state of Israel, why would you ever vote for these Democrats? I still don't get it, because especially the Jewish bloc in America is a very strong, consistent vote for Democrats. Why in the world would you ever vote for these people when they're telling you they want to obliterate you? I don't understand it. But, that is who you've got working to take away opportunity from people of color. Think about it. Ocasio-Cortez was a job killer in her own district in New York. And Rasheeda Talib represents Detroit, a poor section of Detroit. And all she's worried about is impeaching Donald Trump, who actually we're going to show in a minute where he is trying to help Detroit. And her big thing is to wipe Israel off the map. Is that going to help you in Detroit, by the way? Tell me how that's going to help you. I don't get it. The amendment, if made into law, would prohibit the Internal Revenue Service from using any funds in a large House spending bill, which is currently under consideration, to administer or enforce the Opportunity Zone program. The Opportunity Zone program, a tax break created by the 2017 tax bill meant to revitalize poor communities through private investment. Well, you might say, well, why are they opposed? Because a lot of the Democrats opposed it. Because the Democrats, by their own admission, as I say, take these people at their word. They say that they are the party of the poor. So if true, like the Democrats like to say, if they are the party of the poor, then what do they need more of? Poor people. If you're lifted out of poverty, then you might switch and not become a Democrat anymore. If you actually have a job and pay taxes, you might not want to pay high taxes. So the Democrats want to keep you just barely surviving enough that you'll be comfortable in your poverty. That's what they want. The opportunity zones, and check this out. The opportunity zones were included in a 2017 law by Senator Tim Scott, who happens to be black, from South Carolina, a South Carolina Republican who was born into poverty in North Charleston. The program was based on a bill he originally co-sponsored in 2017 with several Democrats, including Spartacus Cory Booker, a Democrat of New Jersey, and had support from House lawmakers of both parties. So why kill it? Because it's working. It's working. That's got to be the reason. It must be working. And if it's working, and it might actually help Donald Trump, and heaven forbid take some people out of poverty, away from the party of the poor, then it's got to be stopped. If you don't think it's working, if you don't want to take my word for it, how about let's take in a black man's word for it? Bob Johnson, the first black billionaire in America, the founder of BET. We're going to play a little excerpt from a speech he gave about a year ago where he's talking about this very thing in the opportunity zones and what it means for entrepreneurs, for opportunity for people of color. Check it out.
Labor signed a historic document that created something called auto portability. Auto portability is designed to reduce retirement leakage among low-income 401k account holders who tend to cash out. And Mr. President, you should know this, 60% of African American and Hispanic Americans cash out of their 401k account. When this program, the policy that Secretary Costa initiated along with my company, is implemented, along with the big financial record keepers, the Fidelities, the Vanguards, this program will put close to $800 billion back in the retirement pockets of minority Americans. So I just want to applaud you for that. Now, getting to the most important thing. Most of you probably know that I started BET on a $500,000 loan from a guy named John Malone. That $500,000 that John Malone put into BET allowed me, along with a lot of other minority employees and others, to build a $4 billion business. What this proves is the efficacy, Mr. President, of a program that allows capital to flow to places where people are seeking an opportunity. And I am convinced that this program, where the tax incentives flowing out of the Treasury Department to business people, will cause people to invest money where before they saw risk, now they will see opportunity. And that combination of putting money into communities will allow for those communities to become vibrant, to become safe, to create ownership, and most important, to contribute to the well-being.
Wow. I don't know. Would you rather take Ocasio-Cortez's word for it or Bob Johnson? I'm going with Bob Johnson. And then, we talked about this yesterday. As I say, go back and look at our podcast, told you how to do it. Joe Biden has the audacity to come out and say that Donald Trump is the first racist president we've ever elected. And I've told you this before, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. Donald Trump, if he is in fact a racist white supremacist, he's the worst one in the history. I don't know about the first one, but he's absolutely the worst one And why I say that is because he absolutely sucks at it. Look at what, don't take my word for it, look at what Bob Johnson's talking about. In another snippet of video, he's saying that Donald Trump has brought light, economic light, into neighborhoods that have never seen the light before. So if Donald Trump is a racist, he's the worst I've ever seen because he's absolutely terrible at it. He's trying to help all Americans, especially black Americans. If you get truly woke, maybe you'll see it, but don't take my word for it. Look at Bob Johnson. You sure don't want to take Ocasio-Cortez or Rasheeda Talib. Trust me, they don't have anybody who's an American citizen and loves freedom and loves America. They don't have their interests at heart at all. Matter of fact, they want you to go away. Trump claims success for the program, talking about this opportunity zone and taxation, tax breaks. In his State of the Union address earlier this year, man, was that a great speech or what? Wealthy people and companies are pouring money, this is what the president said, pouring money into poor neighborhoods or areas that haven't seen investment in many decades, Trump said in February. It's got to be stopped, right? We got to stop Donald Trump, man. He is doing way, way too much, man. He's bringing prosperity, or at least the potential of, to neighborhoods, as Bob Johnson said, that had never seen it before. Never before. Not during Obama's administration, no. In Donald Trump's administration. There's an age-old question, I think Reagan kind of first started it, where he talks about, are you better off than you were before? So let me just reach out to people in Ocasio-Cortez's district and just ask that question. Are you better off now that Ocasio-Cortez is representing you and killed 25,000 jobs in your community? Are you better off now, or do you think you'd be better off with those jobs? Keep in mind, this gal, she's the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know if you remember this or not, but back during that dispute about Amazon and all, they were going to give Amazon $8 billion in tax breaks if they moved. Now, they weren't giving them any money, but tax breaks if they moved. Ocasio-Cortez actually said, and you can look it up, you can Google it, but Google is of the devil, I'm just saying. You can look it up. She actually said, well, if we're going to give them $8 billion, which they weren't, it was tax breaks, not actual money, why don't we use that $8 billion to lure other jobs in, like they had $8 billion just laying around. She has no concept of economy. She says she's for the poor when she's lived in a life of luxury her entire life. And we talked about that on a previous show. And I'll ask the same question about you in Detroit. Is Detroit better off with Rasheeda Talib in office? I'm sure she's better off. Thank God she didn't get her wish, although they're going to try it again and again to impeach President Trump. And thank God she hasn't been able to wipe Israel off the map, although she clearly would like to. So are you better off in Detroit or in New York with these two in office? Or is the country better off? Make the case. Chime in on Facebook and tell me how anybody is better off other than those two with those two in the office. Tell me how it is. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for the sleeper to awaken. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. We're getting all Dune-ish on you for those of you who are fans of the movie Dune or the book series, which was better. It's time for the sleeper to awaken, because I'm telling you right now, I firmly believe that we've been in a long slumber as a nation going back to the end of World War II. We've been resting on our laurels. We've gotten fat and happy, and we have forgotten that it takes that what Thomas Jefferson said, that you can't be both ignorant and free. You got to have there's another book out there that talks about faith without works is dead. We got to do the work. We got to rise up, wake up, because if we don't, it's all going under. And we need to do it before the election. Certainly before the election. We need a punishing election that sends a clarion message out that we've had enough. But we need to get busy right now. Support the president. Support members of Congress. Put pressure on them, because the violence in our country is something we just can't. People are literally going to die today because of what's happening in the streets of our country, and it breaks my heart. All right, we're going to move on to this last article. Let me check the time. Got a few minutes left. And this comes from a publication called Best Life. And it's a comment on an opinion piece written by this doctor in the Washington Post. And it's talking about the idea or the concept of having a complete, full shutdown of the United States of America. And we're not talking about what we've already done before. This is beyond that. And there is actually a push to do this, certainly to do it until Wednesday, the day after the Tuesday election, I'm sure. But let's get into it. From Best Life publication, this is what a full shutdown across the United States would look like, a doctor says. It seems more likely than ever that the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of you listeners out there are calling it the plandemic, and I could appreciate that, is not going away on its own. Whoever really said that it would? Now, President Trump is hopeful. He said, I hope it just disappears. But, you know, that'd be the same thing as like saying hope that the flu disappears. I got a feeling that we're going to have some version. This is COVID-19, by the way, which guess what that means? There's 18 before this, and there's probably going to be some after, and they may even be worse. But it says new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are rising rapidly in states across the country, and it remains to be seen if state officials urging residents to wear masks and stay at home as much as possible will actually slow the spread of the virus. Well, that is not exactly true what they said. Yes, more people are dying because more people have gotten infected, but the key component in this is the infection rate and the death rate. The death rate has not gone up. In fact, if anything, it has gone down. You got to keep in mind that these so-called experts were predicting that by this time, over a year ago, when this first kind of started breaking out, they predicted that by this time we would have 2.5 million people dead this year alone from the coronavirus. Is it still possible? Of course, I guess it is. But we're nowhere near approaching that kind of infection rate. So the actual death toll has dropped. The number of people dying has not, but the death rate has dropped, which is the most important thing. Now, if you have a loved one that contracts this and dies and suffers from it, then certainly it has a personal meaning, and I'm not trying to make light of it. But in a country of 350 some odd million people, the amount of people actually get infecting, let alone actually dying from this, is hardly even measurable. If it's your family, it's immeasurable, right? But that's a different story. So originally, they predicted that group out in Washington State predicted 2.5 million. Now they've adjusted it down. You know, if you think about it, and I mentioned this, I believe, a day before yesterday, I guess. These shows kind of run together, man. Life kind of blends together. But if Donald Trump were not president right now, if Obama were president at this moment, they would be touting, is there any doubt in your mind that they would be touting the response to coronavirus? Let's say he did exactly what Donald Trump has done. They would say what a tremendous success it was that he cut the death rate from 2.5 million down to maybe a couple of 100,000. They would be calling it a miraculous success. But because it's Donald Trump, nothing about him can be reported as a success unless he successfully gets defeated. Then, of course, they'll be chime. And they're already talking about that, and it's nowhere near that way, right? It's possible, back to the article, it's possible that more drastic measures need to be taken, and for some health experts, that means a full shutdown across the U.S. Here's what that would look like, and man, this is scary. Lena S. Wynn, a medical doctor, wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Post, and this is what she said. A full shutdown would mean that everyone in the entire country stays at home from 4 to 6 weeks. So basically 2 months staying at home, from a month to 2 months. No one leaves. I mean, no one, without any real exceptions. I mean, think about that, man. So why don't they just weld the doors shut like they did in China? You know, in Wuhan, one of the ways they controlled the virus was they went in there, people that were sick, they just welded the doors shut and left them in there. Is that racist to say that? It's the truth. I don't know. It's kind of like that Orwell thing. The more a society doesn't like the truth, the more they hate those that speak it. So, you know, if you notice, if some people have chimed in on this on the Facebook pages, that I've gotten a lot more haters on, a lot more trolls on the page lately, and a lot of you have been defending me, and I greatly appreciate that. I actually take it as that I must be doing something right, you know, that they're trolling me. They're trolling little old me from Hawthorne, Florida. In this scenario, she continues about this 6-week shutdown, those already infected, now listen to the logic of this. Those already infected would spread the virus only to their immediate household. So if you were sick, shut in with the rest of your family, y'all just get sick together. I guess you'd have a die-in, right? That's another word, a different type of family reunion, right? If no one has additional contacts, so if you don't see anybody, we collectively starve the virus and stop transmission. So if we all go into our house, I'm a bit confused, because isn't the left opposed to like preppers, people who are prepping for the end of time and, nuclear war or pandemics? Like, it seemed like the preppers were right? So they want us all to become preppers? I mean, think about it. How would any household be able to stay in their house for 6 weeks without a ton of non-perishable foods and prepper type stuff, right? And if you didn't, wouldn't they be, you'd need to be clinging to your Bibles and your guns, right? If you're going to stay at home for 6 weeks and you got a stock of food and the guy next to you didn't prep right, where's he going to come for his food? Knocking or kicking in your door. So we all become preppers. By the way, that reminds me of something. People are always asking how you can support me. One way to do it is go to our sponsors link. We now have a sponsors link in our description on the Facebook intro, and check it out. Go to that link. One of our sponsors is Big Daddy Unlimited. They're all things the Second Amendment, tactical stuff, and they got all kind of gear that you could use to prep or to keep somebody from stealing your prep. Just trust me on it. Check it out. It'd be good for you and good for me. But check it out, Big Daddy Unlimited. Use the link on my Facebook page and it will help me as well. The other options Wynn mentions, that's this doctor, are status quo, doing nothing. I got a problem with that. And they're implying that if we keep doing what we're doing right now, it's doing nothing, which is nonsense. Do you really feel like if you're confined, if you're out of work, if you're mandated to wear a mask and all that kind of stuff, do you really feel like you're doing nothing? Do you really feel like the president is doing nothing? I mean, what he's done, they hate. So this idea that we're doing nothing. The other is a whack-a-mole, shutting down hotspots as they emerge. Dr. Fauci's actually talked about that. It actually makes sense to me. I really believe we need to do the opposite of what Cuomo has done in New York. Protect people who are vulnerable, like older folks in nursing homes, because they're the highest death rate. Not pour sick people into them like Cuomo did, but protect them, and then, hit the hot spots and deal with it as it flares up. The latter has been proposed, talking about the hot spots, by many experts, including Dr. Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who has suggested individual states' shutdowns. Now, I don't believe in mandated shutdowns. I believe we have to move on. We have to assess our risk and move on. In Los Angeles, which has emerged as one of the new epicenters of the pandemic in the U.S., Mayor Eric Garcetti, who it's a real piece of work, recently said that a new stay-at-home order would be surgical and targeted. I mean, and this is the guy out there where the teachers union has actually come out and said that they're not going to go back to and reopen the schools until they defund the police. So opening of schools has zero to do with defunding the police, which has zero to do with the pandemic. They don't care about this. They're trying to take advantage of all this. So the bottom line for me is you need to assess your own risk. And I keep saying this, but it not only if I say it does it bear repeating, but it's a true nonetheless. It's never been safe to leave the cave. Never been safe to leave the cave. And you cannot trust totally on experts. I'm 100% for having experts around you. My old daddy used to say, when he was a very strong political figure, he said, don't be afraid to be surrounded by people, or surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. I mean, I got a fish here. He's smarter than me. He said, but listen to them. Then you craft your own feelings in your own way, and you make a decision. You don't make the decision based solely on what they say, but you listen to them. President Trump is doing exactly that. He's a master at that. That's why he's such a successful businessman. But you cannot let the experts dictate to you when to go out. Because if you did, we would never leave. We would never leave the cave if we waited to the person saying, well, we got to wait till it's absolutely safe out there. You've actually had people say we got to wait until there is a vaccine. Can you imagine that? There may never be a vaccine. I'm hoping there is. I'm very hopeful there is. But you have to assess your own risk. If you leave it to these experts, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Let me check my time. I got a little bit of time left. But it's not clear this less restrictive approach would be enough to stop the spread across the country, especially when not a single U.S. state is currently on track to contain COVID. What if we can't contain it? You ever thought about that? This idea that we can contain it is ridiculous. Weren't we supposed to? The reason we shut down to start with, at least what we were sold, is to curb the spread of it so that our intensive care units could be maintained and not overwhelmed. We built hospitals, put ships out there that weren't even used. We curbed the thing. Donald Trump and his leadership helped curb it. Does it mean it stopped forever? No. But this idea that we've got to shut totally down, I'm telling you right now, if we were to follow the advice of this and we actually shut down for 6 weeks, no one left their house, nothing moved whatsoever. I don't know about whether COVID would be eliminated, but our way of life would be eliminated. I don't know that we could recover from what they're talking about, because they're not talking about this partial shutdown. They're literally talking about everybody completely out of work for 2 months with nothing. I mean, it's just not possible. It says here, the idea of a hard shutdown should be on the table, according to Andy Salavant, former acting administrator of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So the idea of a complete shutdown should be something on the table. No, I'm totally opposed to that. He said it would be more difficult and disruptive, you think? They would probably still be getting paid. You know who'd still be getting paid? The experts. But the short-term pain could bring the economy back more quickly. Really? Oh, my God. Do you really believe, is there anyone out there that actually believes that if we shut everything down for 2 months, that it would just make, when we came back, we'd be germ-free and the economy would just turn around and skyrocket? There's no way in the world. I mean, that is a pipe dream. That is a fantasy, man. It is just absolutely crazy. Given how resistant some state residents and even state officials have been to restrictions of any kind, whether mask mandates or business closures, it's hard to imagine the entire country getting on board with another lengthy shutdown. You think? I'm not down with it. I can tell you that right now. As Wynn notes, this is the doctor that's wrote this opinion, however, doing nothing is no longer a real possibility. Who is doing nothing? Is there anyone out there that's doing nothing about this? I don't see it. She said there will be a breaking point. Yeah, it would be after we shut down for 2 months totally. If we followed your advice, we'd be at the breaking point for sure. And for more on the future coronavirus in the country, Dr. Fauci just said the words about COVID-19 you never want to hear, that basically it could be here for a long time. It probably is. We're susceptible to more of this. There's things in the pipeline that are happening in China that who knows. By the way, I got a minute or two left. Let me check my time, make sure I got it. Yeah, I got a couple minutes left. I want to tell you, put something on your radar screen that I don't hear anyone talking about really. Have you been following what's happening natural disaster wise in China right now? There's something happening in China that is unbelievable and has the potential to basically change the entire world, at least politically and maybe economically. China is having an epic flooding situation over there. There's this phenomenon, they say, that only happens every few hundred years, where basically it has to do with, and I don't totally understand the science, the sun rays hitting the earth at a certain angle or a certain way, and it causes excessive cloud cover in that area, which soaks up rain from the ocean and puts it over the land. That's what's happening to China. They are having epic flooding, and here's where it really gets scary. Have you ever heard of that Three Gorges Dam that's like their, greatest accomplishment or whatever? Apparently the thing, and no one's talking about this, but I've been listening to some pretty reliable sources, that is on the verge of collapse, that dam is on the verge of collapse. You know how many people live in the flood zone of that dam? Try 400 million. 400 million. More than the entire United States of America live in could be directly impacted by that. If that happens, and I'm not wishing it at all for them to happen, then China, as we know it, could go away. I mean, think about it. If they had deaths and destruction in that area, it's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on the Communist Party. No telling what could happen. So that's something you really need to be putting on your radar screen. I don't hear Fox News even talk about it, let alone CNN, because it don't fit the narrative. But we need to really be tracking that over the coming few, because apparently this phenomenon lasts a little bit of time there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I'm going fishing. I don't know about you. Hug your loved ones a little tighter. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Above all else, let's pray for this great United States of America. And as I tell you, check out that sponsor link. I really could use your support. Keep sharing the show far and wide. We're growing on a daily basis. But as I say, each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.